Tonight, the first and only debate between America's second-in-command, Mike Pence,
stakes in this election have never been higher,
and the woman who's campaigning for his job, Kamala Harris. All eyes turn to tonight's divided stage in Utah.
This all taking place against the backdrop of President Trump's recovery from COVID-19 in the White House, still in lockdown, and Russia vindication. Declassified documents shedding new light on who knew what, when, concerning the 2016 Trump campaign and allegations of collusion.
Plus, the plight of a Christian pastor imprisoned in Iran. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Showdown in Salt Lake City tonight. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
Good evening, and I'm John Jessup. Tonight, the main attractions at the University of Utah, where Vice President Mike Pence and Democratic rival Kamala Harris face off in a live televised debate.
This is the only vice presidential debate of the campaign. CBN senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener kicks us off tonight with a preview. Tara?
First, it will be a debate setting unlike any other. The vice president and Kamala Harris 12 feet apart, going head-to-head with a see-through safety barrier between them. Final preparations are underway.
Be prepared for what is, I think, very likely to be a series of untruths.
The stakes arguably the highest in recent history.
we're looking very much forward to the vice presidential debate.
Joe Biden insisting on distance and plexiglass to protect his running mate from any potential exposure to coronavirus. Initially, the Pence team wasn't in favor, responding, if Senator Harris wants to use a fortress around herself, have at it. But overnight said if such a barrier is critical for the Harris team, then we're not going to let it stand in the way. The debate comes as there are new concerns about whether the VP is safe to debate. White House advisor Stephen Miller is tested positive. His wife, Katie, Pence's communications director, was traveling with him in Utah. She's tested negative the past 2 days. Pence's doctor says he has not been in close contact with anyone who has tested positive and is encouraged to go about his normal activities and does not need to quarantine. Like the first presidential debate, Pence and Harris are expected to clash on the administration's coronavirus response and relief efforts. On Tuesday, the president abruptly halted stimulus talks with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Overnight, he reversed course, tweeting the House and Senate should immediately approve. Pence and Harris share tickets with two of the oldest men to run for president. President Trump is 74, Biden is 77, putting an extra emphasis on their role as the second in command. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you, Tara. And David Brody, CBN's chief political analyst, joins us now for more. David, tonight's debate, is it more significant now because of the president's COVID diagnosis?
Well, I think to a degree it's more significant. I mean, I think it was going to be significant either way. Obviously, it's a vice presidential debate and it's their only one. But sure, I think it raises the stakes quite considerably, especially because it gives Kamala Harris and the Biden team a real chance to show a major difference on COVID-19. And remember, this is what they've wanted all along. This has been their playbook to say the president and his team have failed on COVID, and they're going to point right to the president's health and say, see, there, I told you so. Masks work, social distancing work, and this White House flouted that, didn't obey the guidelines, their own CDC guidelines. And I think it's going to be a real challenge for the vice president tonight to come and have some sort of response to that. Obviously, they're working on it, but we'll see.
David, aside from COVID, what topics, what issues should we expect to see tonight as far as the debate goes?
Well, I think you're going to see a myriad of them all. Obviously, the economy, and there'll be more talk about international issues as well. And, of course, immigration, and you just go down the list. But I think more importantly, what you're going to see, John and Jenna, are themes, right? You're going to see law and order, versus Antifa, or at least that's the way the Trump campaign wants to paint it. The Biden-Harris campaign will paint it much differently, but I think you're going to see that theme emerge tonight. And you're also going to see a theme about liberty and freedom. Mike Pence will talk a lot about that tonight, and he'll say that the other side, the Biden-Harris campaign, is going to make you wear a mask, and it's going to be tyranny and all of that. So I think those are kind of the parameters that we're going to see tonight, and I think that's what I'm looking for.
David, just about 15 seconds left here, but on the topic of tone, how do you think tonight's tone will be different from the presidential debate?
Well, it can't get any worse than Biden and Trump, for sure. So I think you're going to see a more civilized debate. But the fact that there's plexiglass in between them, hey, at least they can't throw things at each other. That's good. It'll hit the plexiglass.
Yeah. David, we do want to, while we have you here, we want to switch gears and talk about the declassification of documents related to the Russia collusion investigation following the 2016 election.
Yeah, David, Fox News is reporting some of those documents show there was a plot to whip up a scandal. According to the declassified information, Hillary Clinton wanted to stir up a scandal pointing to Russia interfering with the election. Then CIA Director John Brennan briefed President Obama on Clinton's plan because she presumably wanted to detract from her email scandal. We should also note here that the U.S. intelligence community concluded that Russia meddled in the 2016 election, aiming to boost Trump's candidacy. David, what have you heard about these documents, and what are your thoughts?
Well, let's just talk about the political impact of all of this. I think it's negligible. I'll be honest with you. I know conservatives have been looking for the smoking gun, and this could be considered a potential smoking gun, a redacted handwritten note by John Brennan. And indeed, it's pretty provocative, and it does show that Hillary Clinton was looking to cause some sort of disturbance in the 2016 campaign. But I just said 4 key digits, 2016, the 2016 campaign, not the 2020 campaign. You know, Trump wants to continue to harp on this, and conservatives care about it. And I'm not saying it's not important. It is. But whether or not it affects the 2020 race, look, he's running against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He's not running against Hillary Clinton anymore, and that's bad news for Trump.
You know, Biden, of course, President Obama's vice president at the time. David, do you think that this revelation could hurt him now in 2020?
Well, let's see how much Biden's name comes up. Now, we know his name has come up before because he was briefed, or at least had some meetings as it relates to Michael Flynn and the Hatch Act and all of that. So we know that Biden's name has come up. But once again, unless there's this huge blockbuster, something we don't already know, all we have at this point is a handwritten note by Brennan, potentially implicating Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. But what about Joe Biden? Where is the Joe Biden smoking gun? We once again, okay, Michael Flynn, he was involved in the conversations, but that's been out there already. We haven't seen anything new to advance that storyline. So I wonder how much this was really going to have legs in terms of the general election coming up November 3rd.
David, there's already some criticism against CIA Director John Ratcliffe, saying that he cherry-picked what was declassified to change the narrative. Your take here, should the American people be outraged by this, or is this politics as usual?
No, I'm not sure about the cherry picking. I mean, I think that makes Democrats look like they're cherry picking. Look, this is pretty clear. I mean, Brennan's handwritten note is suggesting that something nefarious was going on. Here's the issue. The actual memo that Brennan's going to defend this and say, well, look, I was just going with what Russian intelligence officials were, the information we were gathering from Russian intelligence officials. So therefore, he's going to say, look, I don't know if it was true or not, but this is what was going on in Russian intelligence circles. And so I think that's kind of the out for the Obama administration on this. Not that it's much of an out. Look, we talked to President Trump about 3 months or so ago, and I asked him specifically, what crime did Barack Obama commit? Because you always say he committed crimes. And President Trump told me straight out on camera for CBN News, he said, treason. That's what he said. Some pretty powerful words.
Yeah, powerful words indeed. All right, David, we will leave it there. Thank you. Have a great Wednesday.
You too.
Well, coronavirus infections still haunting the White House West Wing, with senior advisor Stephen Miller becoming the latest in the president's inner circle to test positive.
CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with the latest developments. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Jenna, John, President Trump is back in the Oval Office this afternoon for a briefing. And as you guys were talking about, the White House is taking extra precautions to keep people safe. Take a look at this video. Workers in hazmat suits spraying disinfectant in the briefing room this week as staff has been told to stay home. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany tweeted that President Trump says he feels great and that his doctors add that he's been fever-free for more than 4 days, symptom-free for over 24 hours. Still, CDC guidelines state he should remain isolated for at least 10 days from his first symptoms.
His schedule right now is fluid. We're looking at his prognosis from a health standpoint.
This after at least 24 people who have been near President Trump or the White House in recent days now have tested positive for COVID. Top aide Stephen Miller, positive. And nearly all members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are at the latest to be put in quarantine. The commander-in-chief is eager to get back to work, even changing his tune on the next coronavirus relief package, calling on lawmakers to pass a stimulus bill after saying on Tuesday that he's done with this fight until after the election. Trump tweeted, "If I am sent a standalone bill for stimulus checks, they will go out immediately," adding he'll also approve several stopgap measures, supporting the ideas of $25 billion for airlines and $125 billion for small businesses.
Now, this White House outbreak does raise some questions about the second presidential debate. On Tuesday, Biden said it should be called off if Trump is still infected, but Biden did add that he'll move forward with guidance from health experts. John, Jenna?
All right. White House correspondent Ben Kennedy, thank you. Meanwhile, the Justice Department has charged 2 Islamic State terrorists in the murder of American hostages held in Syria. El Shafi El-Sheikh and Alexandra Cody are charged with several counts of conspiracy, which could carry life imprisonment. The indictment says Cody and El-Sheikh were directly involved with the torturous killings of American journalist James Foley and American aid worker, that is, Kayla Mueller, and several others. The Justice Department says the charges sent a strong warning to terrorists.
My message to other terrorists is this: if you harm an American, you will face the same fate as these men. You will face American arms in the battlefield. And if you survive that, you will face American justice in an American courtroom and the prospect of many years in an American prison.
And the families of the hostages say they are thankful and hope this will lead to the truth of what happened to their loved ones.
Coming up, a huge threat right inside America.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Welcome back. Tonight, one national security expert is sounding the alarm about a growing threat to our country.
CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips explains.
Bradley Bowman leads the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. He tells me how in the past, political division in the U.S. carried little to no consequence to national security. But that time is not now.
This is scary what we're doing right now. By our own divisiveness, we are making ourselves less safe.
Military analyst Brad Bowman believes the current division is unprecedented and the implications stretch well beyond our borders.
Russia has been trying to hurt and divide democracy, American democracy, since the 1920s. So this is not new. What they most want is they want to pit the extremes against each other. So, they want to pit the far right against the far left, and so that we tear each other apart. They want to say that our authoritarian model, their authoritarian model, is better than ours. Look at America. Look at that horrific debate. They can't even talk to each other in a civil way. Look at the riots. Look at the violence. And so we really are playing right into their hands.
Bowman says diversity is America's greatest strength, what he calls its center of gravity. It's why he's critically concerned.
The scary divisions that we're seeing, in my view, along racial lines, economic lines, party lines, to me, our adversaries, particularly Russia and increasingly China, view as an opportunity to attack as our center of gravity of unity. Your political adversary is not your enemy. And if that's the way you think, you're helping Putin more than you're helping our country. And I think you need to hear that directly.
Bradley points to Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election and further alleged interference now in 2020. But he says that's just one example of how the cancer of division spreading in our land leaves us more susceptible to outside influence.
Unify your team, divide the other team, and that's how you win. And gosh darn it, we're dividing our own team right now. We can't be our own worst enemies. We should not do Vladimir Putin's work for him.
Bowman is quick to point out that there is room for robust disagreement within our democracy. He says that's not what weakens us. The problem is when we see fellow Americans as our enemies simply because they have different views. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Eric. FaithWire.com's Dan Andros joins us now with a look at a biblical approach to addressing the divisiveness in our nation.
And Dan, this was the topic of your latest Faith versus Culture on the CBN News Channel. What does the Bible say, Dan, about being divided politically, culturally?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. And yeah, we thought this was an important discussion to have because it is more divided now than ever. And I think after the election, it's probably only going to get worse than it's before it gets better. And so I think it's important to give a biblical look at how we as Christians should be responding to this. And I think one of the first things to understand, culturally, the division, I think in Luke 12, Jesus makes it plain that we should expect division. This should not be surprising to us at all. He says in verse 51, do you think that I've come to give peace on earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. So he explicitly states it, that we should expect it. And he, of course, uses the illustrations of families being divided against one another to make the point. So we should absolutely not be surprised, first and foremost, with division we're seeing. We should expect it.
Dan, I want to ask, I think Paul teaches, if possible, live peaceably among all men. How do you balance that against the verse that you just mentioned about expecting division in the world today?
Yeah, well, it is a tough one to do because, as we said, there's so much division out there. But the other kind of division, John, that we have is among Christians as well. So there's two things that we have to balance there. So, yeah, we've got to learn to live peaceably as much as we can with our brothers. But even more importantly is that unity amongst ourselves as Christians. And so we have to also, focus on that. And where it goes off the rails is when we don't.
And I think we've lost Dan's audio. We're going to take a very quick break and we'll be right back.
the Homefront.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Homefront, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Homefront. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Homefront, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Welcome back. A 43-year-old house church pastor in Iran named Youssef Nardakani is behind bars serving a 6-year prison sentence.
He's accused by Iranian authorities of, quote, propagating house churches and, quote, promoting Zionist Christianity.
George Thomas discussed his case with a member of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom.
Nadim Bienza, thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell us about the case of Pastor Youssef Nardakani.
Sure. So Pastor Youssef Nardakani is a prisoner of conscience that I've adopted as a commissioner on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Just over 2 years ago, in July of 2018, armed men came to Iranian Pastor Nardakani's home in the middle of the night, beat him, tasered his 14-year-old son, and then hauled him off to jail, where he remains today. He's currently in one of the most notorious prisons in the world, the Evin prison in Tehran, simply for following his faith. So he's been arrested and tried on charges of promoting Zionist Christianity and acting against national security, really for being a pastor of a church. That he was convicted, although he's been appealing that since 2016. So he is a pastor of a home church of about 400 people. He was born into a non-religious Muslim family, but became a Christian at age 19. As in most countries in the Middle East, or all really, you're not allowed to change your religion if you're a Muslim. But most aren't quite as severe as Iran, where the punishment is extremely severe. And he was actually earlier sentenced to death in 2010, and then because of the outcry against that sentence, he had ended up being released for time served in 2012. So the Iranian government has gone after him quite a bit simply because of his faith.
Yeah, there is some concern about his health condition. Tell us what's the latest.
Sure. Well, in September, he went on a hunger strike after the government denied both of his sons, Daniel and Yoel, permission to advance their education because they had opted out of a Muslim religion classes, which you can do according to their constitution. But of course, it came at a cost. And so we knew he was weakened by that. We're concerned, of course, there's COVID in the prison. And there's been a lot of news that a lot of the prisoners have been released or furloughed because of the pandemic. Pastor Nardakani was not one of those. So he's still in prison. He has an additional 10 years to serve. So we're concerned about his health, and we would ask the government to release him and hope that the U.S. government would would ask for his release, I should say.
Iran, as you know, is one of the most dangerous places in the world for Christians and other religious minorities, including gays and lesbians. Tell us, what are the challenges they face?
Yes, so they're really targeted because of their faith. I mean, we see this with Christians, as you mentioned, Jews, Baha'is, Sufis, Sunnis. They're very vulnerable in many different ways. The government uses a lot of different laws to go after them. And also, as you'd mentioned with the LGBT community, they use religion to go after them and having a lot of executions, jailing women, targeting atheists. So they go after people of faith, and then they use religion laws to go after other people as well, in order, to really target everyone who really isn't a Shia Muslim. And for that reason, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom has recommended that Iran be a country of particular concern since 2002. It has among the worst religious freedom conditions in the world. Systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations. Those are the three words that you really have to meet to be a country of particular concern, and they certainly do that.
A survey came out just earlier this summer showing that, in fact, many Iranians are turning their back on religion, specifically the state institutional religion, in this case, Islam, right?
Right, and we're seeing that in places like Saudi Arabia as well, where when people are forced to follow a faith, you'll see the population not embrace it as holistic, and when it's not a choice they got to make. So certainly that's what we're seeing in Iran as well.
Okay, terrific. Nadine, as always, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Coming up, what animal will go extinct next? We hear from the youngest royals.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Finally tonight, the adorable royal children and a lesson in natural history. New clips from Kensington Palace show Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis interviewing the writer of the Life series on BBC.
That's right, Jenna. English broadcaster and conservationist Sir David Attenborough joined the royal children in an adorable Q&A session.
Hello, David Attenborough. What animal do you think will become extinct next?
Well, let's hope there won't be any, because there are lots of things we can do when animals are reduced to and danger of extinction. We can protect them.
And following Prince George's question were more personal questions from Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte, who revealed John her love for spiders.
Ooh. Well, the video, of course, has gone viral and captured the hearts of people around the world. Look how much these little tykes have grown.
They are so cute. I think Charlotte looks like Prince William.
We'll see you tomorrow.